You are listening to the Chits and Giggles podcast.
Hello and welcome to this edition of Chits and Giggles Chit Chat. Today I'm Russell and I'm joined by Ben.
Hey Russell, it's nice that today
Hi.
you're Russell. What were you yesterday? Who were you yesterday?
I am man of many names. I will not reveal. How have you been? It's been a while since it's just been us two on the podcast.
It has.
It feels like.
It's been crazy busy. Unfortunately, I've been trying too hard to get a job working in board games that I haven't been able to focus on playing them myself, which is embarrassing.
I heard this. You've made it up to the ranks of distributor now.
Yes.
Haven't you?
Yep. For me, that's one step below my dream of working for a publisher, but at the moment, Australia doesn't really have any decent publishers, so that might not be able to happen.
So for the uninitiated, what does an actual distributor do in the board game industry?
So the distributor is the middleman between the publishers and the shops.
So basically, you're in charge of getting the games from one place to another. You're a middleman, basically. That's it.
But because in Australia it's so difficult to get things, you might have heard me complaining ever since I got back here, that I'm now trying to solve that problem. I'm trying to get things in so that we get them here as soon, if not before, other places, which is tricky, especially with some of these new Gen Con releases, and like for instance, Cry Havoc.
Yes.
That's been semi-released in the States now because of Gen Con, except the official EU release isn't until Essen, and so I'm like, well, where does Australia fit in that? Do we get it after everyone or between? So, but I guess it kind of.
I would have figured that. I would have figured that you'd have got it before. You know what, with the day being ahead there.
Yes.
But it doesn't work like that, does it?
Unfortunately.
No.
But that kind of leads me on to the kind of loose topic that I wanted to mention or talk to you about in this chit chat, which is this whole cycle of games and how they become available and when they become available. And I'm sure everyone's been able to relate to the problem where the new game comes out, you want to get it, and it's nowhere to be found.
Yes. That's happened way too much for my liking.
Yeah, and everyone can think of certain times when Codenames came out. And I remember in England working for a store, contacting the distributor within 2 hours when I talked to the distributor, they had sold out of Codenames just as it came out. And the same was with Spyfall. I remember at Spyfall at Essen last year, they just weren't there. And it happens time and time again, and it's such a strange industry.
It is. It's the only industry that there is in terms of media, video games, films, books, that kind of stuff, where there is no easy way to find out a release date for a game. I've never encountered that before, and it's so frustrating from a gamer's perspective.
And especially now in this season, this is like peak season between Gen Con and Essen, and it is so hard to just find out. You can look at a lot of publishers' websites currently now, and it will still have a link to Essen 2015, and yet we're 2 months away, and
from the next
one, and yet there's nothing.
So there is no easy way to find out from a distributor's point of view the game's release date either. So it's not just the public's an issue with the public, it's an issue with distributors as well.
It is easier, but the thing is, there's multiple release dates. There's release dates as to when it's released to the distributors, and then there's release dates to when it's released to the public. And some publishers are better than others. Some will have products available months earlier, and I can have my hands on...
Are you naming names?
But some of them, you can get your hands on the game, and then I can distribute it, but the shops can't sell it until a certain date. So the shops can have it, but they can't sell it until a certain date. And then there's some where it's just a grab all, go for it. If you can get it, you can sell it as quick as you can.
That does bring us onto the topic of Gen Con. I mean, we'll go back to that thing because I'm sure it's going to be there's more to talk about in it. But Gen Con just happened, and obviously there were a lot of big games.
Yes.
So obviously it's hard for us to talk about them properly because I don't think we've played any of them.
No, and I mean
not being able to go to Gen Con, sadly.
Right.
But we hear a lot about them. I mean, there was some big names there, like you said, Cry Havoc earlier on. That's was that a Portal Games release?
Yeah, that one looks. It's funny because I don't fully understand the buzz about the game. It must be one of those ones you have to play, because to me it looks like so. Nexus Ops or Risk 2210 ID, but without the dice. And I guess because I've watched the the Watch It Played video, which is the one that Portal Games say you don't need to read the rulebook if you don't want. You can watch the video.
Yeah.
And just from that, looking at the combat, it looks really interesting, but it doesn't look massively involved. But it might be one of those ones which is really subtle and clever, and that when you play it, you're like, this is amazing. But the hype from that one, I'm definitely going to play it, and I'm very keen. But I'm surprised that an area control game such as that has got so much buzz about it.
Well, I mean, I would be keen to play it. Like you said, it does look very interesting. What I find about the game is, these games, is usually you look at a game and you can tell instantly whether it's something. Usually, you can tell instantly whether it's something you'd be interested in playing or not. Yeah. And I feel like Cry Havoc does look like a game that looks like it would be very interesting to play.
Yeah.
Because the pieces, the like artwork, and the fact that it has got like cards and stuff. But I don't know. I'm not sure if I would enjoy it.
To me,
I'm not sure if I would enjoy it by the sounds of it.
To me, it's one of these kind of Ameritrash Eurogame fusions, but more on the American side. And there's some, like, to me, very big similarities between it and Scythe, which I have managed to play now, which is on the more of a Eurogame style thing, where the area control element you don't have to do. You don't need to attack other people if you don't want. You can go a whole game with never having to do that. But they look quite similar. If you were to look at them, it's just that Scythe looks a bit more complicated, and Cry Havoc looks a bit more risky, which is not like risque, where all the robots are naked.
That would be very, very strange. Please, nobody make that game. Scythe, my one of my colleagues has Scythe, but I've yet to play it. But man, it's so much buzz about that. But that was even before Gen Con. Like even at Essen, there was demo copies of it. I remember us seeing it and you pointing it out and going, "Wow, look, there's Scythe."
Yeah, that's
and I was like, one of the games that you wanted to play, but we didn't get around to it. And still, nearly a year later, I haven't played it.
Yeah, well, that's because the Kickstarter backers only started getting it maybe a month or so ago, and now it's finally available retail. But it was funny because Essen last year was Stone Meyer was massively hitting hard on Between Two Cities, which you may know I despise. And
I own and I've yet to play, thanks to you, Ben. I literally haven't even opened it.
Oh,
this is crazy.
You've got to play it. Maybe not. Maybe you can sell it when it's still unwrapped.
What, after this, like, what's the word, plug? Oh yeah, this game I despise, you should buy it.
Yeah, that's right. There must be people who want to trade for it.
Maybe there are people out there who literally listen to what you say about a game, knowing that they disagree with you completely, and they'll just buy anything that you say you hate.
I know.
Or like never buy anything that you say you love.
That's how all of Splendor sales have been driven. Every time I say I hate it.
I heard that it went up on the Board Game Geek Top 100 rate.
Speaking of Splendor and how much I despise Splendor, I played finally, and it's funny because I spoke to Ash in the last chit chat about it. Mystic Vale, which is
how is that?
It's so similar to Splendor in a lot of ways that it's not funny, but because it's also a deck builder, it's not. It's a card crafting. It's the same kind of process as deck building, but without actually getting more cards. But it does what Splendor tried to do, and in my opinion failed. You have these 3 different tiers of cards that you can buy, and then there's 3 available, and you buy them and it builds your engine, which is what you're doing in Splendor. But the first thing is the cards are balanced. They're actually equal. It's not like when in Splendor where you can buy a card and then add it into your deck, and then a card that comes up that does the exact same thing but costs less takes its place.
Cheaper. Yeah.
That doesn't happen in this game. And so if you like Splendor, play Mystic Vale, because it is actually a fascinating game. It is very good. But
If you don't like Splendor, should you play Mystic Vale?
yeah, because it's just an awesome game. No, it depends why you
Okay.
don't. If you like deck building, then play Mystic Vale. And if you like Splendor, it's an engine building game, and it's quite good because I played a game where it looked like during the game someone was going to win because they were getting a lot of money and buying all these cards and doing all this stuff. But in Mystic Vale, you've actually got to... You don't happen upon victory points by doing well. You know how in some games, just by doing well, you will pick up victory points, like in Catan. You want to get more resources, and by doing so, you will have to build more settlements, which are worth more points. In Mystic Vale, you can get a lot of money and buy a lot of cards, but if you're buying more cards that give you more money, it won't necessarily mean points at the end. And then they've got a cool Race for the Galaxy style victory point thing where there's a supply, and once that supply runs out, it triggers the end of the game. So if you've built an engine which dips into that supply really quickly, you can force an earlier game. So then the different styles of play people pick will dictate the play that you should do to either counteract it or complement it. Or it's a very good game.
Okay. Well, I know that you and Nash talk about it, and you actually specifically text me said, "Hey, I just played this. I think you'll like it." So I will actually try and get my hands on a copy of it soon.
The
just to
push
give it
your
a
luck
go.
element that Flip City has.
I love that.
Which is so,
you know, I love it.
It's a good game. But the push your luck,
Okay.
I think, is even better than the Flip City push your luck as well.
Oh man, you're really selling me on this. Well done. Cool. All right. So there's that game, obviously being one of the big ones as well. A game that I've have but haven't played. This is silly because this is one of those things we touched on in the previous podcast with, you know, do we play games enough? And there are still games in my library that I own but I have not played properly. And one of them is the Networks, which again made a big sort of dent in,
I can't believe you.
And Gen Con.
Yeah,
I know.
It's one game that you got before the American hype, and yet you still didn't play it.
I know. To be fair, I've read up the rules. What surprises me, and this is again, this opinion might change once I play the game, but it doesn't seem to be that interesting in terms of gameplay. But I've heard a lot of people say, "Oh, this is great," and that's actually one of the reasons why I bought the game. But essentially, in the Networks, you run a basic cable TV channel. You have a very basic schedule. 3 slots. You got 8 p.m, 9 p.m, 10 p.m, or maybe something like that. And then you have these channels, and they each get a certain audience for every year that they are on the air. Some improve and then decline. Some just decline because they're rubbish. But then what you can do with these, some actions you can do later on is spend money that you've gained through adverts and stuff to add stars to these shows. So like improve the ratings. Now it feels very much like a number kind of crunching game. Like, oh, well, I buy this because it'll give me this much more audience and then I'll gain more points. And I don't know, it doesn't feel like, oh, I really want to play this. That's part of the reason why I haven't played it.
Yeah.
But I really keep trying to get it to the table, and believe it or not, it's difficult. It's been difficult to get it to the table because people have not been that won over by it, and I'm just like, why? It sounds like a really great concept.
It's true, the theme doesn't engage me, so if someone brought that to the table and something else, I don't know, that's a tough one. If it was a co-op game, I'd choose Networks over that.
To be honest, like, I don't know if it's just because I come from a background in TV, but to me the theme was like, whoa, this is such a good idea for a game. Like, you're, coming up with your own TV channel, and you can choose the shows to go on it and stuff. And I just think, just that in a nutshell, that sounds great. But other people aren't that fussed, and I was really surprised. Obviously, there must be some people who are interested in it because it wouldn't have caused such a stir, like there wouldn't have been so much hype about it. But still, from my personal experience, not been that much interest in it.
Yeah, no, it's hype's a weird thing.
Also, one other thing I want to say about it, and I don't want to, crap on it a lot because
you haven't played it yet.
It does seem like I haven't played it, but when I was taking the components out, one of the components was really just poorly all of them felt like a bit like less good quality. Like I took
that's
one
a
of the
shame.
TV station boards out and it ripped. The paper on the top of it ripped. So I've got a permanently disfigured TV channel in my box, which I can't fix. So it's really frustrating.
You're too strong for your own
But
good.
yeah. Well, I wish it was that, but actually it was just because it wasn't like made right. Anyway, I'm sure that can be fixed in future edition of it.
Speaking
but
of
still annoying.
opening games for the first time, can you think of a game? Because I reckon whatever it is, I can beat it. Think of a game, and that the first time you opened it up, there was some kind of pre-game prep you had to do. Think of the worst game. So, as an example, Terra in Meeple City, you have to stick all the little stickers on the meeples before you can even play the first game.
Yeah.
Cold Express, you have to build the whole train.
That's not too bad though.
So
that's quite fun. It's like a craft project.
Worst one?
The worst prep I've had to do to start playing a game. It was probably punching out all of the bits in Rattle Battle. There's quite a lot of them. Also, there's been any games where you have to like stick stickers on generally, are quite annoying, but not too bad. I mean, I'm assuming you've got some really horror story coming up.
There's two games that I played recently, which have, and one's not as bad, but still a little annoying, and one was just appalling. The first one, funnily enough, after I've just spent time talking about how good it is, it was Mystic Vale. The cards that you insert into your sleeves to construct the cards, they're plastic, so similar to something like Gloom, where the cards are plastic so that they're see-through, so you can stack them and see through them. Awesome. The thing is, each card has a thin film, similar to that you might find on a new phone or something, that you need to peel off.
Like in LuniQuest.
Is it like that? I haven't
in
played
LuniQuest.
LuniQuest.
Like the acid, the thick plastic each comes with like two like kind of filmy things to keep it like nice and shiny until you actually play it.
Yeah, you have to do that with every single card. Now, admittedly,
I
just played it regardless and then sat down some point. So the game can be played without it. But number one in my painful setup game tally list thing is Millennium Blades.
I feel like you should create an article of this.
Oh yes, I should.
Millennium Blades.
Millennium Blades. So that's so it's a game from level 99 games, and it's a meta game essentially where it's a board game where you're playing someone who plays a collectible card game, and you have to.
Well, okay,
it's amazing. The game is awesome.
Is this by the same guys who did like Deck Builder, the deck building game?
No. So how it works is that you are playing like a Yu-Gi-Oh style collectible card game, and you have tournaments. But the thing is, before each tournament, you have the phase where you have to actually build your collection of cards and build your deck that you'll take into the tournament. And then there's you can sell cards to the shop, you can buy booster packs, you can trade cards with other players. There's even then these cards that pop up which are the fashion, so these certain sets are fashionable at the moment and you'll get extra points in the tournament. And then this is a timed phase, and after that phase you then go into the tournament phase where the deck that you built during the deck building phase, you will then play against each other in the tournament. It's a very clever game. But how the money works in the game is it's paper money. So that's a warning. But what they've done to make the paper money less annoying is they've bundled it into stacks, like little wads of cash of groups of $10 notes. Or 10 notes at a time. The thing is, you have to do this yourself. So you get 2 stacks of 400 paper notes. So you have 800 paper notes. These are like Monopoly money. You have to separate them into piles of 5, put 2 piles of 5 back to back, get a sticker, like a long sticker, and stick and wrap it around the bundle to make one bundle. And that's now worth $1 in game. So 10 pieces of paper stuck back to back is worth $1, and you have 800 of these. So you have to do it 80 times before you can even play the game.
This is confusing. This is ridiculous. But what most upsets me is they've put 10 pieces of paper to create $10. So there's 10-cent pieces of paper in the game.
Well, yeah, but I think it's one of these things where that's actually $10. It's a wad, and cards cost tons of money, and you're throwing all these wads of cash, and it is quite fun throwing wads of cash around. I just wish it came pre-assembled.
I mean, I would imagine that would probably be a lot of effort and a lot of complicated sort of setup for most companies.
If I wanted to put that much effort into assembling a tabletop game before playing it, I'd be playing Warhammer.
True. Well, I'm sorry to hear that you had to go through that, Ben.
But the game is amazing. But a warning to anyone who gets it: it is an expensive game because there's a lot in it, and it takes probably about an hour and a half before you can even play the game, before you can even read the rules, before you can play the game.
Do you know what? That rings a bell. I swear I've read something whether I've seen that game where you're throwing the wads of cash down. It sounds, and I think it sounds, but I had no idea about the rest of the game. Like, sounds like an intriguing one, very meta. I don't know if I enjoy meta games, but worth a try, I sure. As long as maybe I'll play it when I come visit you at some point, because then I don't have to set the game up. So I wanted to. This is completely sort of off topic, but there was a game that I played recently that I just know you would hate. You'd either hate it or you'd love it. Yeah. I was fortunate enough to go and visit Bristol's board game cafe, Chance Encounters, recently. Me and a couple of friends. We went down and I didn't know anything about the cafe before. I went there, other than it had only opened recently. So I go there, and actually it's probably worth just giving it sort of a mini review, because this is chit chat after all.
Is it better than Thirsty Meeples in Oxford?
No, but Thirsty Meeples has a history and a lot of board games and a great shop.
Is it better than Drafts in London?
No, it's not. The thing is, okay, the thing is, this cafe is new. It's been opened only a couple of months. We saw it maybe after about a month or so after it opened. And also, it's in Bristol itself. There's a really cool area called the Christmas Steps, and they have like really sort of cramped, narrow kind of buildings there. And it's right in the bottom, and it's taken over from another sort of small cafe. It is a very narrow building, but it goes sort of fairly, good distance back. And so they have enough tables there for a decent amount of people. Anyway, so it's a nice building. It's modern. They've got a really cool mural on the wall with all these board game kind of pictures. The tables are really awesome. What actually it comes with these tables with slide-in cup slots. So they've got like a groove into the side of the table, and it goes all the way around. And the cup slots have like a inverse version of that, and you literally can slide along these cup slots. You can just pop in your pint or your coffee or whatever into these things, and they slide along. So I think that was really good. It actually avoids the drink spilling or like condensation on the table issue that other cafes have. So that was cool. Yeah, that's cool. But their library is definitely the smallest of all the cafes I've been to. Actually, having said that, I did pop into Edinburgh's Tabletop Cafe as well recently, and they have an even smaller library, but they have a very small location. Anyway, this should turn into like board game cafe review corner, actually.
So there's two things that are really important with the board game cafe. Mm-hmm. One of them, in the Bristol one, do they have staff who can teach you the games?
They do, but when we went there for all day. I think it was on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, and they didn't have the staff working in the day. They had about 2 or 3 members of staff there. One of them was clearly like the manager, and he was just doing some work on a laptop. The other member of staff was obviously like a server, for food and drinks, and knows a few games, I guess. But then there was another member of staff, I think, who was working in the kitchen or on the bar. The only thing is they did not have gurus on during the day, so the only people there were the server and the manager, and they both did not know many of the games that we asked them for help with. But like I said, they're new business. It wasn't that busy during the day. Like they still had a couple of tables, but they wasn't that busy. So guess is that whoever it was that was working on was mainly just there to serve food and maybe knew a few games, but wasn't like a proper guru. So I'm not holding that against them. Anyway, that's the first thing. What was
the other important thing is they need a pun-based name. What's it called?
Oh, Chance Encounters. I thought that was pretty good.
Okay. No, I like that.
Who was it? Somebody said that it was the best games cafe name that they'd ever seen. I think it was one of the big guys, the big board game guys. But yeah, I think it was Shut Up and Sit Down, maybe, I don't know. But anyway, they I thought it was okay. I thought it was a good name. But I think it's probably not the best. But it's definitely up there.
No, I still like Snakes and Lagers.
That's good.
And I like even the Boardroom. That's in Canada.
That's
as
nice.
Well.
We should we should do more discussion of board game cafes in general. Anyway, so we went there and we played like a lot of new games. We played the Red Dragon Inn. Never played that before. I'm kind of intrigued, but I'm not sure if it's a game I'd love to play again. The fact that every character has different play styles, but it's a bit cheeky and like in a kind of like schoolboy kind of way, like hoo-hoo, like there's a lady here with like massive breasts and barely covered, and she's like, being a lad on the cards, with these little quotes and stuff. But I don't hate it, and I just think it's not sort of my game. We also played a really cool game. I don't remember the name of it. It's the one where it's one where it's like a race with kind of steampunk machines, and you're playing as like famous inventors. Is it Steampunk Rally? Steampunk Rally?
Yeah.
Steampunk, something like that. That was good. I liked that. It was like a literal engine builder. You have these pieces, these cards, and they sort of match up to other cards. There's cards that turn dice into movement. There's cards that turn dice into other dice. There's all these different mechanics going on, and you can literally choose your avenue, and it was really good. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a very fun, like, good looking game, whatever. But there was one highlight, Ben, and there was a game. This is the game that I was building up to this whole time. It is a game you'll either hate or you'll love, and I'm sure you're not going to play it a lot of times, but when you do play it, it's hilarious, and it was called Here Kitty Kitty. Have you heard of this game, Ben? Here Kitty Kitty. Yeah, have you heard of it?
No.
Okay, this is an insane game. You essentially play as a crazy cat person. You have a house. You have a piece of land with a lawn, a porch, and a house. And there are all these wooden kind of cat meeples in the middle of the table. They're all like 3D printed plastic ones. They're pretty good quality considering the game. And the idea is that you have to coax as many cats into your house as possible over the course of the game. And you have to do that by playing these cards. They're cards that bring cats closer. You can take two different actions, that you playing these cards and then actually choosing cats to move closer. You can steal cats from other properties. You can play cards that sort of mess up your opponent's game somewhat. And then you score points depending on the sets of cats that you have. There are 4 different colors. If you have a set cat of each color in your property, you score extra points. You get the most points. If you get the most cats of a certain color, you also score points. It's like a kind of set collection game-ish, but it's just so ridiculous. Like, the cards are just stupid that you play. There was one which has there's a cat burglar where it literally and all these kind of cat-based puns.
But take that mechanics.
Oh, definitely. It's a take that game to its core. It's the most ridiculous game that I've ever played, but it was so funny. I haven't laughed that much since we played Fun Employed.
Wow.
It's honestly ridiculous fun. I'm curious as to see if anyone else out there has heard of or played Here Kitty Kitty, and if so, please let us know what you think. It's a game like I said, you won't play it more than maybe 2 or 3 times max, because after it gets old. But it's so stupid that it's fun.
What is with cat-themed games? Ever since Exploding Kittens, people are just like, well, if I just make it about cats, people will buy it.
I'm not a big fan of Exploding Kittens. I mean, the gameplay is good, but the humor for me is not. I just don't find it funny. But yeah, you're right. You've got Schrodinger's cats. There's
Cat
a game
Tower.
Cat Tower. There's another Cat Tower, a game by the Cat Tower people, which is about shapes of cats and Catbox. Is it Catbox or Pussy? Is it?
Yep. That's no Catbox.
Whatever.
And
Lots of
kids in a blender.
Yeah, lots of stupid cat-based games.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it's just that, the internet's finally caught up to board games.
Yeah.
They've collided in this horrible amalgamation. Just created all these cat-based games.
Speaking of board game trends at the moment, something I've noticed, especially this year, so there's a lot of games that are being released which are themed clones of other games. So you've got, of course, Pandemic Cthulhu and Pandemic Iberia coming out this year. But you've also got Star Trek Frontiers, which is just Mage Knight, but Star Trek themed.
Oh,
and then
I had no idea about that.
Yeah. And then Fantasy Flight has announced Iron Throne, which is Cosmic Encounter, but Game of Thrones.
How is that going to work? Because Cosmic Encounter is just the fact that it's ludicrous is what makes it great.
Yeah, I think it's pretty similar. I think instead of having spaceships, so you have crowns, and instead of planets, you've got members of your family, and then you're putting crowns on. But this seems to be a thing at the moment where you have a game which is tried and tested, and then you just rebrand or retheme it, and it's then going to sell.
That's the thing. It's going to sell. These games, it sounds like all of these rethemes are either popular games to begin with that need a new breath of sort of life into them, like the Pandemic ones. If you love Pandemic, but you want to play more Pandemic and you're like, well, I'm sick of the original game, you're going to either buy into the, Pandemic Iberia or Reign of Cthulhu, because they're like slightly different takes on it and gives you something new to do.
Yeah.
But then with them, on the other hand, there are games which are good games that aren't popular enough, so just stick them a popular brand on them, like Game of Thrones or Star Trek.
The thing is, at least Pandemic, it says Pandemic in the title, but when I looked at Star Trek Frontiers and I turned it over and I'm like, hey, wait a sec, this is Mage Knight, and then I looked at the designer and WizKids and all this stuff, and I'm like, it's not even called Mage Knight Star Trek Frontiers or something. It's just it's almost as if it's a brand new game, but it's not. And I don't know how I feel about that.
How similar is it to Major Knight? It's like a direct duplicate.
I believe there's a few differences, because within the Star Trek kind of world, it's not really combat heavy. So I believe it kind of attunes to that. And I know it's the 50th anniversary year of Star Trek or something. So it explains why there's a lot of Star Trek things coming out, like Star Trek Ascendancy, which is apparently meant to be very good. But it's just... I'm torn, because on one side of the thing, I'm looking at all these releases happening this year, and I'm like, there's too many now. I remember when you could play most of the decent new releases over a year, but now I feel like you have to do some research and just be like, yeah, people like that, but that's not for me. That's not for me. And you can't play it. You can't play everything anymore.
No,
which
I don't feel.
I feel like, yeah.
I don't feel like that's ever been the case for me though. But as you know, you've been a big board gamer longer than I have, and I mean that in the sense that you like board games, not that you're large in real life. So even though I work in a board game cafe and I get the chance to play games all the time, I still don't feel like I get to play enough. Like I still haven't touched on some of these big games. For example, Scythe. One of my colleagues brought that in the other day, planning to play it that evening, but didn't get around to it and still hasn't. So it's a few days now with this game, very excited to play, still haven't got it. So I think part of it is just there's not enough time there's never been enough time. But that does remind me of this other amazing game that we did play, Escape from the Aliens in Outer Space. Okay. Have you heard of it?
I've heard of it, but I don't know much about it.
Okay, so it's a hidden movement game. Yeah, there are two teams. You have these like kind of flip chart kind of boards. So each sort of new page is a new board, a new map where you can play. And it's like a grid system, a hexagonal grid system. You've got two teams. You've got the aliens and then you've got the humans. The humans are simply trying to get to one of the escape pods on the map, and the aliens are trying to hunt them down. However, there are grey spaces and there are white spaces. There are usually more grey spaces than white spaces, and the white spaces are like places you can safely hide. So you can basically every time it's your turn, if you are in a white space, you announce no noise or silence in all sectors or in whatever. And then, however, if you're in a grey space, you have to draw a card. And there's 3 different cards you can draw. There's white cards, red cards, and green cards. If it's a white card, you say silence in all sectors, but everyone knows that you're in a grey space. If you draw a green card, you can say whatever the hell you want, but you have to say something. So you might go, oh, I'm in D03. For example, even though you might be on the complete opposite side of the map. However, if you draw a red card, you have to announce the space that you're in. So it becomes this like really clever little game about trying to sort of outwit your opponents. And also there's an element of luck in it, because the cards that you draw dictate whether your plan can, get pulled off spectacularly. So during the game, obviously you've got aliens and humans, and they are on different teams. But the aliens are the only ones that can attack. So at some point, the aliens are going to have to announce that they're aliens by saying, I'm attacking this space. And you can attack any space, so that if you attack a space with a human, they are dead, and then they become an alien, and then they hunt down the rest of the humans. So it's a great little game.
That's good.
It's really fun. I think you'd really like it. And it goes up to 8 players, or I don't know, maybe more.
Big call, considering I don't like hidden movement games.
Well, this one's more fun because it's more quick. There's more, there's a lot more lying involved. There's items.
And at the start of the game, everyone's almost against everyone, right?
No, well, technically, your humans are working for themselves, but the aliens are working as a team try to hunt down, because you win as a human if you escape.
On which team?
No, until people start announcing. However, each player has a role. For example, the psychologist actually gets to start where the aliens start. So if you have to announce where you are and you're in the aliens area, there's a chance, either they're an alien or they might possibly be that one human player. And I actually was that role. So it was lucky for me because I managed to get away with it, because they thought, he's an alien, and they kind of went down to deal with the humans. Meanwhile, I just snuck off. The only thing is, if you
draw a green card, you can announce that you're with the aliens.
Yeah, exactly. So if you can be like, I'm here. And so it adds this element of unpredictability. There's also a human player that can attack. So the human player in our game started attacking, and so the other aliens were like, he's our guy, he's our teammate. But then the 4th alien actually didn't actually announce that he was trying to be subtle and try and let the other fake alien, do whatever it was that he was doing. For some reason, I don't know what the actual strategy there was, but then that human player got an advantage, because while everyone was thinking he was an alien and leaving him go to deal with one of the quadrants, he managed to get to an escape pod. The only thing about the game that I didn't like is the fact that at the escape pods, you have to draw from a deck of 5 random cards. 1 of them is red, 4 of them are green. If it's a red, that escape pod is now broken and you cannot escape from that one. So now everyone knows where you are, and you have to go to a completely different side of the map to get out.
Oh, wow.
So it's really, I feel like that's a broken element. I feel like there should be and actually another good thing, and this is part of why I think it is still a good game, is that the sort of community around this game have created all these different variants. So there's a variant where if you attack someone and you miss, you get less movement on your next turn if you're an alien. There's a variant where if you die as a human, you can spawn back in the alien's home zone. But these aren't official rules to my knowledge, because I didn't get to look at the rule book properly. But there is a big community behind this game who've created all these fixes for the game. So I think there is lots of good gameplay in there, and it's a fantastic game, and I think you'd really like it. We'll see, because maybe I'll.
What was it called again?
Escape from the Aliens in Outer Space. So it's quite an old game as well, but really good, I thought. Really fun.
It reminds me just of the fact that at the start you don't know who's on which team.
Yeah.
It reminds me of a game I played recently, Deception Murder in Hong Kong.
Oh, how was it?
It's really good. It's got that kind of, it's again managed to add to that Cluedo-esque Mysterium type mechanic. So how it works is that One person is the forensic scientist, and they're like the Mysterium ghost. So they're not in the game. They're just silently giving clues. The rest of the players are detectives, and they're investigating a murder. And in front of each detective, there are 4, or is it 3? I think it's 4. There are 4 murder weapons, and then 4 pieces of evidence. Now, one of the detectives is actually the murderer.
Yeah.
And so what will happen is everyone will close their eyes, werewolf style. That murderer will open their eyes and point to the forensic scientist one of the weapons and one of the pieces of evidence. And then they'll close their eyes, and then everyone wakes up. Then the forensic scientist will give evidence or clues based on the weapon and the evidence that the murderer pointed out. So there's a couple of cards that are always in play. There's one is how the person died, or the cause of death, and it might say loss of blood or suffocation or poisoning or something. And then it will also have a location of where it happened. And then there are some random cards that may do time of day, or it might be like, what was the victim wearing, or did the murder was it quick or did it drag on? Something like this. And the forensic scientist is going to answer these questions essentially based on the weapon and the evidence that the murderer chose at the start of the game. And how the game works is that everyone just talks, and you're just looking at all the different things and going, well, it's if the cause of death was loss of blood, then everyone with like a sharp weapon, so it could be you and that. But then if it's that, well, which then? Because they said it was allowed. They said the death was allowed, and nothing on their cards in front of them suggested it's loud, so maybe it's not them. And the thing is, the murderer is doing this as well. The murderer is investigating the murder, so they're going to try and throw the scent off to other people by pointing out other things. And it goes for 3 rounds, and you have a token, and you can accuse someone, and when you accuse someone, you have to pick one of the weapons and one of the pieces of evidence. And if you're correct with the weapon and the evidence, then that person, you've revealed them as a murderer, and the investigators win. But if you're wrong by even just one thing, if you pick the right weapon but the wrong evidence, then the forensic scientist goes, no, and that's it. And if everyone throws in their token and no one gets it right, then the murderer wins.
Ooh, sounds good.
Yeah, it's a cool game. And plus you can add a variant Avalon style where there is one person who is the witness, so they saw the crime. So they know who, well, there's the accomplice, and the accomplice knows who the murderer is, and then there's a witness, and the witness knows who the accomplice and the murderer are, but not which one is the murderer. So you know the murderer is one of these 2 people. And at the end of the game, if the murderer is caught, the murderer and the accomplice can try and hush the witness by killing them before they can give evidence. And if they successfully manage to kill the witness, similar to the assassin killing Merlin, then the murderer can win.
That sounds great. Is that an official variant?
Yeah, that comes with it, yeah.
That sounds great. I think I'd enjoy that, because the fact is, like, when you play Avalon, you literally feel like you're going in blind, and there's all sorts of no like real information you can grasp onto. But with this game, it sounds like there's actual information that you have to work with.
Yeah, and so it's kind of a good mix between like an Avalon and a Mysterium, because you don't have to be as creative as the forensic scientist as a ghost by trying to think of abstract relations with these cards. It's fairly simple. You're just essentially answering questions, but you still have to answer them in such a way that will give people the right clues. But the game is also really quick, and those 3 rounds can go quickly, and you can just move into another game really quickly, really simply. And every game is completely different, because everyone's weapons and evidence is different, and the murder is different. And
I'm curious. This is the silliest thing to sort of like latch onto and go, what is this? But the murderer, if they guess, obviously they're never going to guess the correct answer, because they would lose, right? Okay. Yeah. And so I guess the idea is that if they, I don't know, they can still guess at any point, and so,
they guess by if they throw their token in, they accuse someone, and it's all about timing and trying to throw people off the scent, but in a realistic way.
So the information that you have to give is who, what, and when.
Well, you just pick which weapon and which evidence, because at that time you will pick a person as well. So you'll be like, it was Russell and the weapon was the butcher's knife, and the evidence was a plastic bag.
Okay. That sounds great.
Yeah.
I really want to try
It's
that.
a good game. Just before we wind up, I just wanted to ask, because we've just seen a lot of Gen Con releases, and we are both going to Essen.
Yeah.
Name one game that you are crazy excited to play at Essen?
Now, I was looking into this recently because I actually don't know that many games that are coming out at Essen yet. I know there have been a couple of announcements.
Not necessarily a release, just something that you really want to play.
Let me think, because I did... What about you?
I'm really looking forward to the Wasteland delivery service game.
Oh, yeah.
That looks quite fun. I'm really looking forward to getting my hands on my copy of Jam Sumo finally.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I am quite keen to play Vast. That
The
dungeon
Crystal
crawling-
Caverns.
That one.
Yes, the one where one of you plays as a cave.
Yeah, that's the thing. Now, I don't really like dungeon crawling games, but I do like asymmetrical games, and I'm quite interested at how that works. So the funny thing is, I seem to remember someone telling me about Vast during last Essen. It's I've been aware of a game because that phrase. It's a dungeon crawler where you can play as the dungeon. So
Still the
this
most
game has
ridiculous
been
sentence.
floating around for a while, but yeah, I'm very excited for those particular ones.
Do you know what I'm really looking forward to playing at Essen? Is any game which is like a clever take on a bluffing game. Like I like those games.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a game that the game that I really enjoyed at UK Games Expo, which I really want to get my hands on, was The Pursuit of Happiness, because it was like such a good worker placement game. It was so good.
Yeah.
So I played a full game of it at UK Games Expo, and it was so like, this is perfect. This is hitting all the right spots. That I would love to. I'd love to see like another really good worker placement game, or another really good like bluffing game at Essen. But as for what that is, or whether they even exist, I don't know. But I think other than that, like I'd love to get my Seafall. I don't even know if it'll be there, because it probably wouldn't, would it? Because it's like a legacy game. But any
Pandemic Legacy was there last year.
Was it?
Yeah, and Time Stories. You had to go into a special booth to play Time Stories.
Yes, I remember that. I'd like to see more games like that, actually, but not as bad as Time Stories.
Yes. Yes, me too.
And I'm kind of open to seeing, like everything. I will do more research this year than I did last year for Essen, but I still want to be surprised. I still want to go there and be like, oh, this game, this looks amazing. What is this? And then see how it goes. So yeah,
for sure.
That's it really. So that was this episode of Chit Chat. We hope you've had a blast listening to us blather on about games. If you'd like to get in touch, you'd like to comment on anything that we talked about, or if you have any tips of your own for things that we should be keeping our eyes open for, please do get in touch via the usual means: Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, the website. We will see you on the next podcast. But until then, take care.
Thank you for listening to the Chits and Giggles podcast. For more reviews and podcasts, visit forchitsandgiggles.com.